this is the place for you. Don't need to complicate it, it's best to keep it basic. Open the book, the word itself approved. He's Alpha and Omega, the answer since the early ages. What you should do is learn about the greatest. Just so you know, our door is always open. Let's study together instead of debating. Share our differences, let love heal all that's broken. If you need truth, this is the place for you. Don't need to complicate it, it's best to keep it basic. Open the book, the word itself approved. He's Alpha and Omega, the answer since the early ages. What you should do is learn about the greatest. Just so you know, our door is always open. Let's study together instead of debating. Share our differences, let love heal all that's broken.
And shalom aleichem to each and every one of you. So glad to have you with us. Welcome to the broadcast and the programming. This is yours truly, Apostle B.W. Jones Sr., right here on what you all know of as the Proceeding Word. Pardon me, known as the Bible Book Club. It has been an interesting day and time and place for me, and I had an interesting week, as it were, and we're glad to have you with us. Just to make a few housekeeping notes before we get started the way we should. I want to make sure that you all know that we are a Bible book club, and our objective is to read the Bible from the beginning to the end, which is what we've done for many, many decades, but we do it differently. We don't just read it to recite it and to say that we have read it. So when people tell me, I've read the Bible through 100 times, well, we're not that group. We read it as often as much as we can, but we read it in a way that makes not just sense, but allows for the writ to open up and tell us what Yahweh would for us to see and know from it. So if you ever want to know about a real way to hear from God, it's when you go and listen to his word or read his word and let it, as it does, speak to you, and it will show you and guide you in ways you never knew possible. Well, I want to thank you all for your prayers and wishes on yesterday, as I was not feeling my best in any way, shape, or form, and was unable to keep our appointment with you all for our Bereishit Kingdom Ministries midweek Bible study. And thank you for those of you who persevered through and were in prayer with me, or touching and agreeing with me for the healing virtue and the strengthening virtues of Yahweh Uzai. We want to say thank you for your prayers. Also, we want to make sure that you know that every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, we're here for the Proceeding Word. And then on Wednesday nights, which was yesterday, we should have been here for the Bible study, but I said we were not. And then, of course, today, every Thursday at 7 p.m. is our Bible book club. Don't forget, also on Fridays, we have what is known as our Sabbath study worship, and that's our Sabbath Midrash studies. And we're here usually sometime around 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Fridays, and or Saturdays, 11 a.m.-ish Eastern Standard Time. And you're always welcome to our Midrash on those Saturdays. Now, we're also here on what we know as our Tomorrow After Sabbath service. It's a very interesting time and place to come to. But when you come tomorrow after Sabbath service, it is our Sunday service, 10 15 a.m. Eastern Standard Times. And we welcome you to come. But the biggest thing we want everyone to know is that we are here to reason together in Elohim's word. Let us do that for the glory of his purpose and his plan. Now, one last announcement. We are all approaching very quickly a time that is so significant. We are approaching, if you'll look at the bottom part of that screen, we are approaching what is known as the feast season of Sukkah. The bottom third, the last blue bullet in the center of your page is the Sukkah. 5785. That's right. The year changes in Sukkah. Tishri 1 is the month that changes the Hebrew calendar year. And in that, we are at a position and a place in that space of time that we are in understanding the Tishri, the Sukkah of it all. So with that being said, and with that being understood, um, October the 2nd at sundown begins Sukkah. Okay. October the 11th at sundown begins Yom Kippur. And these are the things that have to be understood. And so I'm sorry, Saints, I have a slight emergency happening while we're doing this. So I want you to understand that what you are looking at is a time for a new year, a time of understanding Him, a time of being with Him. And we'll talk more about that as the programming begins to go and is necessarily happening during the course of that month. Tishri 1, October 2nd, Tishri 10, the most holy day of the year, October the 10th, the 11th, and then that's at sundown, and then the feast season of Hag Hat or Sukkah. All right. And we want to make sure that you all are aware of that, being here for that. It will be fun for you. It'll be a joy for you. If you are in Him, following Him in the ways that we do, it will be a delight for each and every one of us to participate in what His word has to say and what His word has to do. All right, everybody. Let's keep this one piece in mind. Everything that you do in life has to be filtered through the Torah. If you are a kingdom citizen, if you're not a kingdom citizen, if you're not a believer you may say Yeshua HaMashiach, you may say Jesus Christ, you may say if you're a believer in the church, it doesn't matter. Everything that you do as a believer in the God of the Bible must be a standardized practice of making sure you, in fact, filter everything, your thoughts, your ideas, where you want to go with it, in the writ. If you're not there, it doesn't work. Every answer that you would have and want to have and need to have is going to come from the writ. There is nothing more important, I promise you, in your life than filtering your thoughts and your ideas through the word. Some people say, how do you do that? God talks to me. Yeah, He talks to us all, and He makes it His business of doing it through His word. And when we understand this, and I'm stopping on purpose because as we read the Bible for the Bible Book Club, I want you to understand how this is not just a exercise. This is not just a blog or a vlog or what are these things called? A program, that we use. This is actually an exercise in faith. You don't know the word until you read the word. You don't get the word until you actually sit with the word. And though the word is in your heart and it's already in your mind, it requires you to also externally take in the word, to trigger your mind to see and understand revelation, to connect with Elohim. And this is important. Everything you and I do should be always filtered through the word. Don't let anything miss your mind or your heart without you filtering it through the word. I mean, everything, people. You want to buy a car, filter it through the word. You want to see this, that, or the other, filter it through the word. You want to respond to your spouse, filter how you respond through the word. Your children, filter it through the word. Anything that you do that you want to understand and you want to be a part of, you want to make a connection, you want to join this group, filter it through the word. Is this based on what the word of Elohim says one should be involved with? And if it is or is not, How much of it can I take? How much of it should I consider? How much of it should I do? How long should I be in it? Am I in it to learn something and then get out of it? So everything should be filtered through the word of Elohim. Here, we make it very clear that the word of Elohim is, in fact, the first 5 books of your best-selling book of the world called the Bible. And those first 5 books, whether it's of the 66th book King James Authorized Bible or the Bible of controversy, I guess they would say, the Apocrypha, that's 84 books. It's the first 5 of either of those in any translation you can find. So make it your business to filter everything through the Torah, the first 5 books of your known, purchased, owned, mamas, grandmamas, uncles, aunties, your passed on father's Bible, whatever Bible was left you, giving you at dedication in your Bible are the words of God, the first 5 books of your Bible. All right. So let's get started. Let's get into this right now. Many will think this 11 minutes was just chatter and waste of time. And as they skedaddle on, we now know that those that are here for the purpose or why we exist. You're not here just to grab a quick flash in pan soundbite and take it elsewhere. So we're ready. Hope you guys are. Glad to have you with us. Make a comment down in our Clubhouse chat. Make a comment in our YouTube chat. Make a comment in our Facebook chat. Let us know where you're hailing from, where you're coming from. And if you got questions or thoughts, we look forward to hearing your thought or question or comment in the thread. But right now, we're going to pray. Yahweh, thank you for the will, purpose, and plan that is you, your word. Thank you for salvation, which only comes from your word. Thank you for the life that demonstrated salvation, the life of Yeshua HaMashiach. He died on that cross according to Torah's commandment for Pesach. He rose again according to the Torah's commandment for Sed. We thank you. We believe that he lived, died, and rose again by your great power, your word. And we believe he shall return according to your great power, your word. And for those of us who have been left behind since his transition into glory, we now take this seriously to learn the words he left for us to enter into your glory, that we might hear you say, hopefully, well done, my good and faithful, full of my word servant. So Yahweh, tonight we take opportunity to repent for any and all sins, thoughts, ideas, unforgiveness, murmurings, timidity, slothfulness, anything we could have done to transgress your will, we repent of, and we accept the blood of Yeshua that is shed for our sins, and your word that cleanses us and washes away our sins, and that word that gives us safety in you. We're going to go walking around in it. We're asking you to join us there. We know that your presence and your spirit is there, but we're asking you for even a greater revelation. Because when we open your word, it triggers the word you've placed in our heart and in our mind as per the commandment and the new covenant that Messiah made clear would happen. Speak to our hearts. Open our eyes. Open our minds. Open our ears. We have an ear to hear what your spirit says. Teach us and we'll learn, Yahweh. Show us and we'll see. Speak to us and we are here perched to actually hear you. I digress and I decrease all things that are me, that Adonai, you are in supreme condition and position here. Have your way. This program is yours. In the name of Yeshua HaMashiach. Amen. All right, everybody. 15 minutes. We've been going on this way. Sorry for the delay, but again, we had to get that housekeeping out of the way, and we're here with you now. You can't stay long. You can leave since we are almost an hour late starting. I'll understand that and appreciate that. And again, thank you all for your prayers over my body and joining faith with me from yesterday on. Let's move into where we left off at. So I'll need some of y'all to talk and share with us what we're doing here, how we're doing it here. In the book of Genesis, chapter number 49, I'm going to put my Bible on the screen so you guys can see it. And I'll also put my concordance up there so you guys can flow with us as well. Elder Rogers, when you get a chance, we'll chat with you shortly. Genesis, Bereishit, chapter number 49 is where we left off. Verse number 1 told us about Jacob's experience with telling his sons to come before he passed away so he could give them prophetic utterance and tell them instructionally what's going to happen in the very near future and or in the last days. Now, a lot of people thought that chapter 49, verse 1 was him just, putting them in his, having that, the meeting that you have as a family in modern day times where you meet with the family to have the last will and testament read. So that's sort of kind of how we registered. We modern day people registered this conversation in Genesis chapter number 49:1. And it's really him being the prophet, the priest of his home. And he is literally prophesying not just about what's going to happen to the physical sons named Reuben, Simeon, Levi, Uda, Naphtali, all that goes down that line. But he's also speaking prophetically about how all of those entities being a part of the chosen Israel would materialize and manifest in the form of Elohim's plan for humanity on this world that we live on, and how it all is going to end in the last days. So everything you're hearing now from this chapter is prophetic. But we're so used to hearing prophecies from pulpits that we miss prophecies in the writ. Now, we talked about that last week. If you were with us, we'll talk about it more every day we read this writ. So I want y'all to join me in this conversation, and let's look at some things. So Genesis chapter 49, verse 1, he goes on to indicate Jacob called his sons together. This is not the reading of the last will and testament, though it will be similarly. He says, come gather next to me so I can tell you all what's going to befall you in your last days. Verse 2, you've read this before. We're going to read it again. Gather yourselves together and hear, you sons of Jacob, my sons of my flesh. When I was Jacob, my sons of my flesh, when I was Jacob. And I want you to hearken now, sons of my flesh. And I want you to hearken unto Israel, who is now your father. Now, I'd like to have conversation with some people about this. I know we've got pretty far down into this chapter, but I want to know, for the sake of what we've been doing, does anybody understand why he said sons of Jacob and then turn around and says, hear your father Israel? Does anybody have a thought, idea, or conversation regarding that? Wanda, please speak up. Go ahead.
Well, the first thing that comes to mind is that you did explain to us a while back that when we see the name Jacob, when Elohim refers to him as Jacob, it's usually when they were in disobedience. and Israel when they're on track. But here, his name is actually Jacob.
Let's pause because you're about to transition. So and don't lose your thought. I just want to enhance so that everybody can follow you, right? She's saying that there have been many times we've explained to you all when Yahweh is dealing with Israel, sometimes through the prophets, and through Moshe, he would call them Jacob. Whenever Yahweh, our Elohim, would call Israel Jacob, post this point, he is calling a disobedient people into order. But when he calls them Israel, they are, for the most part, making effort to comply, looking like the image of what he'd want for his kingdom in the earth to be. So she's mentioning two different points here. And the second point she's about to enter into is different from Yahweh. But it was introduced to you all when we explained that whenever you're reading in your Bible, from anywhere past Moshe on, and you hear Yahweh or a prophet of Yahweh call the nation Jacob, he's not happy with them. They are acting in their flesh. But then you'll find times when he calls them Israel, my son, Israel, my people, right? Jacob's his people too, but they disobedient. But Israel, when he references them as Israel, they are making the effort to comply with him and be the image of the kingdom's desire. So that part I wanted to slow down when she was talking, because she's about to shift into something you would have thought were the same thing. Now, because you know the principle, Jacob means flesh, Israel means spiritual. So there's the fleshly Israel, and then there's the spiritual Israel. Jacob is the fleshly. That's why he says here in verse 1 of this particular chapter, he goes on to say, come together, you sons of Jacob. He had each son. Now, I want y'all to get this. Minister Wanda, don't lose your thought. He had each son while he had not yet committed his soul to Yahweh. Each son and daughter he had was conceived in his flesh. Jacob, you are the sons of my fleshly years. You are the sons of Jacob. Now, my sons of Jacob, I had you in my youth. I had you when I knew and went to whatever Father Abraham and Father Itzhak said, but I was not convinced Yahweh was mine. I did not commit to Yahweh. Though I am a bearer of the promise of Yahweh, Jacob was not committed to Yahweh. Even after he gets smote in his thigh by the fight with the angel, he says, I'm not going to let you go till you bless me. The angel says to him, which we think is a theophany, actually not just an angel. And he says, what is your name? And Jacob says, my name is Jacob. And he says, your name is no longer Jacob. Your name is Israel. All right. And so even at that point, Jacob does not fully commit to Elohim being his God. He made a covenant and said, if you bring me back to my father, when he was named Jacob, if you'll bring me back past my brother Esau, back to my father, then I'll serve you. I'll give you 1/10 of all that I have, and I'll serve you the way my dad Abraham and Itzhak served you. But people don't realize Jacob does not make this commitment until he's almost dead. So this statement here in verse 1 is so important to this text. He makes the statement here very clearly. Verse 1, Genesis 49, Jacob called his sons, he gathered them together. Verse 2, gather yourselves and hear me, you sons of Jacob. Now I've been converted. I've been conformed. I've been transformed. Now don't just hear me, but the word here is hearken. The word is H8085. It is come and shema, hear intelligently, obediently, causatively. Come listen attentively, carefully, consensually, consent, and considerately. Be content with what I'm going to declare to you. I want you to be diligent about what I'm going to say to you. So he is saying, come, my sons of Jacob, sons of my flesh. Now I'm about to leave you. Let me, from the conversion in my spirit, share with you the prophecies for why we actually exist. Now, the reason I asked for a statement on this, and Minister Wanda was rendering it to us, I wanted to be clear. You knew that Jacob, when Yahweh calls him, is a disobedient people. Here, even Jacob is calling his sons of my flesh when I was doing my own thing. Wasn't really committed to Elohim. I knew about Elohim. I knew the promise of Elohim. I was the living the blessing of Elohim, but I in my soul, Jacob's soul was not committed to him until he was leaving, until he was, oh my goodness, in Egypt, about to die. So here he calls his sons to him, and makes this delineation. Come here, my sons of my flesh, and I need you to hearken to who I am now. I am the Prince of El Elyon. Hear me spiritually. Come hearken to your father, Israel, the prince and promise of Elohim. That's a significant thing. All right, Minister Wanda. So why was that significant? Again, as you were saying, that was the Yahweh part. You go ahead and finish the beautiful point you're about to make.
Well, you actually helped us to understand it. And so what I was going to say is that he is Jacob, and when Moshe is writing, he pins him as Jacob. But when it says hearken to Israel, I was going to say that this was the change to Israel. He was no longer Jacob, because Yahweh always referred to him as Israel. And when we see him say, hearken to Israel, this is now different from the Jacob when he was their father and bringing them up. This is now the one who has accepted Yahweh as his Elohim. That's what I was going to say.
Okay, that's very good. Thank you for that. That's very good, even with me interjecting and messing up the point you was trying to make, right? My bad. So Jacob is making the delineation here again that, hey, you're the sons of my flesh. I am now converted. I'm about to leave y'all. Let me share with y'all what I now understand based on this conversion. There's some stuff that's going to happen that I couldn't wrap my mind around, but here is what's going to happen. All right. Anyone else want to share a thought about that?
Yes, I
if
do.
You did. All right. Moderators, is Gene next?
Yes, sir.
Go ahead, Gene. Quickly, sir.
Yeah. Based on what Wanda said, this also brings me back to when he was at Penuel and he wrestled with the angel. Yet Yahweh pronounced him, changed his name then, before he was fully committed in, let's say, believing in him. I think that's interesting. That brings me to the question, like, why?
One of the. I mean, you're asking a question, not a statement. So I'll answer the question. But the point you make is, as we referenced earlier, when he was at that place where he was at a rock and a hard place, he was told by Elohim to leave the land of Padam Aram, go out of Laban's home, and go back into his father's home, his father's land. Mind you, his father was still alive when he was told to come back to where Yitzhak was living, and conversely, where Esau was still roaming. And you have to go back further in Genesis to see where he made the promise to him when he was first pushed out of his father's camp and driven to Laban's camp because of the anger of Esau. And while Jacob, who should have never been labeled Jacob, was moving towards the land of Laban, Padam Aram, he stops at Bethel, the place legendary in his mind because his father Abraham and his father made sacrifice and an altar there to Elohim. Now, Jacob always knew about Elohim, but Jacob was not committed to Elohim like Yitzhak or Abraham. And I don't think people really think about that as much as you see it every day with what you call PKs, preachers' children. Now, me having been a preacher, you know, as we would call that, I can see it where you've been raised in all of the nuances of the faith as a child, reared up in it. You're a captive audience, so you got no choice but to be in it. Drugged through all the services, made to know all the different doxology, all the different liturgy, all the different programs, and you participated willingly and unwillingly because of the circumstances of being a child of such a person and family. But you might not be committed to that God. You know all about him. You've seen miracles. You've seen testimonies of greatness. You've seen commitment. You've seen backstabbing. You've seen everything that goes along with it. Now, like Jacob, his father Abraham has nothing but a great report. His father Yitzhak was weird. Yitzhak was weird, but he did have a relationship with Elohim. But Jacob and Esau, they didn't. And I don't think people realize that Esau is also Yitzhak's son, and Esau didn't have a relationship with the God of Yitzhak. He knew about him, just like Jacob knew about him. But neither Jacob nor Esau ever committed to Yahweh. I'm going to give y'all 13 seconds to say wow.
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 That's a wow. Wow.
Esau is an enemy. Edom is literally in time an enemy of Israel. Esau disobeys his mother and father, goes out and marries the women of the Canaanites. They told him not to. He lives in the bricks he lives in the houses of burnt sand, i.e. bricks. He was told not to because they needed to be a nomadic people. And you read the story back in a few chapters back when before Yitzhak dies, him and Rebekah blast Esau for it. This is after Jacob's been in Laban's camp and now comes back. So because we skim through the Bible and read certain things, those little nuances, if Yahweh put it in that Bible, if he put it, if Yahweh put it in the Torah, it is important to your Bible. Even though we pick and choose and select choices of text from the Bible to preach, we miss some very insignificant things. So back to the point, Jacob made a commitment to Elohim. And if you go back, I think we probably need to go back and read it. All right, great. Genesis 28. So let's go to Genesis chapter 28 before we come back to 49. Genesis chapter 28 to get the whole storyline of this. Now, I think it's important to read this because the question is significant to where we go. I want y'all to remember this, though. Remember, as a man who has been a pastor of a home, I could only hope my children would serve the God that they saw me serving, rightly and wrongly, in our home. But ultimately, that child has to make that choice. And when that child becomes an adult, they may not serve your God, pastor, evangelist, missionary, more than likely because of the way you actually demonstrated him. Some of us, our children are strung out and wired out and bucked out and cold wallin because of how we actually live. They're looking at us like, okay, well, you say I ought to be in this, but I don't see you sincere about it. They don't say nothing because they know they get their mouth popped or their butt spanked. But when they get old enough to tell you why they don't serve your God, I know I was shocked. I'm glad mine wasn't as bad as some cases. But I'm also glad that what was placed in them, they did not forget. But they did not have to commit to the God of our salvation. So Jacob in chapter 28, I'll put it on the screen for you guys. Very important to see. Chapter 28 of Jacob. Oh, nobody said nothing about that? That no matter how evangelistic and how choir leader you are and how pastoral you are and evangelical you are and missionary and prophet you are, your children still may not serve the God you trying to serve. And in most cases is based on how they saw you serve him and how they saw the people you called friends in your church serving him. They're like, yeah, I don't want that. Now they'll serve it because you got the car, you buy the clothes, you buy the food. Let me come off mic so y'all can see me. They go with you because you're the mom, you're the dad. You got the car, you got the clothes, you got the food, you got the roof, you got the house, you got the school, you get them to school, from school, you do all that stuff. But man, once they become their own, you'll get to see their real viewpoint of your God. Oh, they just were tired of being strict and they just had to go out and sow their royal oats and all that. It's about what they saw, because if what they saw was all good, they would have never gone to evil. So how were we really living? What were we really demonstrating? I know what we preached. I know what we screamed at the top, but when the lights wasn't on and the pulpit wasn't available and there wasn't a microphone in our mouth and there wasn't somebody we was trying to impress, how did we look in the shadows when they would get up and walk to the bathroom at night, hear the conversations? And yeah. Okay, so back to this part. I knew that wouldn't be a popular thing, so let me move on here. Genesis chapter 28. Isaac called Jacob and he blessed him. And he blessed him. And he charged Jacob and he said, you may not marry anybody of these daughters of the Canaanites. I need you to arise and go down to Padam Aram. And I want you to go to the house of Bethuel, your mother's father. And I want you to take a wife from there, one of the daughters of Laban, your mother's brother. And may Elohim bless you and make you fruitful, multiply you, and mayest the people of you be multiplied. and be a multitude of people. Verse 4, give the blessings, and may Yahweh give you the blessing of Abraham to you and your seed with you, that you may inherit the land wherein thou art a stranger, which God Elohim gave to Abraham. Yitzhak then sent Jacob away. There's a whole bunch in that verse. We're going to keep going. And Yitzhak sent Jacob away, and when he went to Padam Haram, unto Laban, the son of Bethuel, the Syrian, the brother of Rebekah's, Jacob's, Esau's mother. When Esau saw Yitzhak had blessed Jacob and sent him away to Padam Haram to take unto him a wife from there, and that as he blessed him, he gave him a charge, saying, thou shalt not take a wife from the daughters of Canaan. And Jacob obeyed his father and his mother, and he had gone to Padam Aram. Now, Jacob obeyed his father and mother, but it don't mean he obeyed Elohim. I'm going to say it again. Jacob obeyed his father and his mother, but it don't mean he obeyed Elohim. I'm going to say that again. Jacob obeyed his father and his mother, but it does not mean he obeyed Elohim. All right. So Jacob obeyed his father and mother, and he went to Padam Aram. Esau, seeing that the daughters of Canaan pleased not Yitzhak his father, then went Esau unto Ishmael. Oh, snap. So Esau's in the same house with his brother Jacob, and though they're splitting, Esau disobeyed his father because Esau got the same charge. Verse 9 says, so when Esau heard that Jacob got blessed and sent to Padam Aram to marry out there, Esau, seeing that the daughters of Canaan pleased not his father, verse 9, Esau went unto Ishmael in Canaan and took unto the wives which he had, which were Mahalata, and the daughter of Ishmael, Avram's son, the sister of Naboth, to be his wife. Now we're going to skip through to verse number 10. And Jacob went out from Beersheba, went down towards Haran, and he lighted upon a certain place. Remember that certain place I talked to y'all about? It was a certain place that was sort of kind of legendary. And he tarried there all night because the sun had set. He took of the stones of that place, and he put them for his pillows, and he lay down in that place to sleep. Verse 12, he dreamed, and behold, a ladder set up on the earth, and at the top of it reached to heaven, and behold, angels of Elohim were ascending and descending upon it. And he beheld, and Yahweh stood above it all, and said, I am, watch this, look at this, y'all. He says, I am Yahweh, Elohim, of Abraham, your grandfather, and Elohim of Yitzhak. I know who they are, and I know whose they are. The land whereon you, Mr. Jacob, is lying, I'm going to give it you because I chose that to happen in Abraham, and I'm going to give it to your seed. You ain't got to do nothing about it. There's nothing. Man, when I read this, I was like, what? I'm going to read it again. Verse 12. Can y'all read with me this time rather than listen to me read? Can y'all hear what Ruach is saying? And he dreamed, verse 12, and behold, a ladder was set up on the earth, and the top of it reached to heaven, Shamayim. And behold, there were angels of Elohim ascending and descending on this ladder. And behold, I love this part. And behold, I hope y'all catching this. When he looked up, and behold, Yahweh stood above it all and said, Jacob, I am Yahweh, Elohim of Abraham, your father, and I am Elohim of Yitzhak, your father. Notice Yahweh doesn't say, I am your God. Okay, keep reading. So he says, in verse 13, he says, the land where you're laying right now, I just want you to know I'm going to give you this land, and I'm going to give it to your children. There's nothing you can do to stop me from doing that. I'm just going to do it because I promised it to your grandfather and your father. You're just a carrier of the blessing, whether you like it or not. I'm pausing for effect, but I guess there will be none. Verse 14 says, and your seed shall be as the dust of the earth. I'm telling you, this is going to happen. Jacob, it ain't got nothing to do with you. It doesn't matter if you're going to serve me or not. This is going to happen. Do y'all hear what these? Do y'all understand what we're trying to get to? He's telling Jacob, all right, now that you're here, here's what's going to happen. You don't have any say in this. Do you realize Jacob can't even change it if he wanted to?
Yes.
Are y'all reading or y'all just listening to me talk?
No, follow.
I'm going to read it again because I want y'all to get it. Verse 12 again. He says, and he dreamed, and behold, a ladder set upon the earth, and the top of it reached to Shamaim, and the angels of Elohim were ascending and descending on it. And behold, Yahweh stood above it and said, I am the God of your father Abraham. I am the God of your father Yitzhak. The land that you're on right now, young man, I'm going to give this to you. You ain't got to do, this is something we grown folk have had a conversation about. And now that you're here, you need to know what's going to be happening. I'm going to give you this land and I'm going to give it to your seed. And there's nothing you can do about it. You ain't got to be saved. You ain't got to be a preacher's son. You ain't got to follow after your daddy's footsteps. I'm giving you this land. Your seed is who I chose to give this to. Do y'all understand that? I mean, the song in my mind is like, can't help it. If I wanted to, I couldn't help it. Even if I could, I can't help it. If I wanted to, I couldn't help it. No.
That part.
Only those that know that song get that. He couldn't help it if he wanted to. He doesn't even have a choice in the matter of being blessed, because the blessing is already on him. Abraham's blessing is also on him. And if you pay attention to what's said here in the passage, verse number 14, your seed shall be like the dust of the earth, and you shall spread abroad to the west and to the east, to the north, to the south, and your seed and all your families, and out of your seed, because of Abraham, all of your families of the earth are going to be blessed. Oh, and verse 15, and beside that, I am going to be with you, whether you serve me or not. Do y'all see this? And I'm going to keep you in all places where you go, and I'm going to bring you again into this land, for I'm not going to leave you, whether you serve me or not, until I have done that which I have spoken to thee about.
Wow.
And Jacob woke up out of his sleep and said, surely Yahweh is in this place. The God of my father Yitzhak and Abraham is in this place. I didn't even know it. He was afraid. And he said, how dreadful is this place? This is none other but the house of Elohim, and this is the gate of heaven. And Jacob rose up early in the morning. He took the stone that he had put for his pillows, and he set it up for a pillar, and he poured oil upon the top of it, and he called the name of that place Beth El. But the name of the city was called Luz at first. Jacob then, look at verse 20. Jacob then vowed a vow, saying, if Elohim will be with me, like he said, and if Elohim will keep me in this way that I go, and if Elohim will give me bread to eat, y'all listen, and give me raiment to put on, so that I come again to my father's house in a state of shalom, then, if he do all of that, then shall Yahweh be my Elohim. So the whole time Jacob is in the land of Padam Aram and has all of his children, he's having his children as Jacob, the flesh man, because Yahweh is not his God. He's just a carrier of a promise. Because for him to come back to his father's house in peace, you and I know the story. He doesn't come back to his father's house in peace until he's had his sons.
Wow.
Did y'all read that with me while we were reading it together? Is it clear that Jacob did not serve Elohim?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
But here's what I give Jacob credit for. The blessing to change the entire world was already in him. And the blessing was in him, but he wasn't committed to he who gave him the blessing. I'm moving slow, so you don't think I'm trying to pull no fast one. I'm moving real slow. Yitzhak already put the blessing on him when they ate the deer, the goat meat, which is supposed to be venison, right? When Rebecca put him in position, he got that blessing. The dew of heaven is on him. Then in chapter 28, you just read verse 1, Jacob gets blessed again by Yitzhak and sent away. Jacob never commits to Elohim. Elohim introduces himself to him and says, I'm the God of your fathers. And we had conversation. Well, I had a plan for something, and I'm telling you, I'm going to be with you because I have a plan beyond you. Y'all just gonna leave me sitting out here looking crazy?
You good, man.
That's so deep. That is so deep. It be too much confirmation in here. I just be trying.
Right.
There's these nuances in the Torah. Notice we're talking from Torah. So these are foundational pieces of significance that can and do literally affect our biblical testimonial presentations, i.e. sermons, from Bible content. And if you don't understand the Torah content, your Bible content will be skewed. And it might not be something you can see, just like you didn't see here, because by the time you and I come on the scene, all we hear is the God of Yitzhak, the God of Abraham, Yitzhak, and Jacob. So Jacob's already included by the time you and I come. But Jacob don't get on the bandwagon until he's almost dead. Abraham gets on it when he's what? Whenever Yahweh told him to leave, him and Terah to leave Chaldea. Yitzhak is born. He's also a worshiper. You saw that when he met Rebecca, she saw him in the field and he was out there worshiping Elohim. We know you never see Jacob, you never see Esau worshiping Yahweh. They knew how to help their dad with the sacrifices. Jacob was never seen serving Yahweh. The closest it came to him serving him of his own was when he, in fact, put oil on a stone that he slept on at this place that he deemed the gate to Shamayim, the gate to heaven. Am I giving too much information too fast? I read it weeks and months ago. I wanted to come back to it before I got out of it. See, because we can't leave Genesis until we recap some of this stuff. Because when you get into Exodus, you're going to see things completely different than just Moses and Pharaoh. So Linda asks a question. Linda Marshall asks a question. Could some people have a blessing on them and don't have a relationship with Yahweh? Clearly, that's the case. I'm not being smart. That's my humor. Clearly, that's the case. Now, the uniqueness is that Yahweh don't just put blessings on people. All right. In this instance, the blessing was for Abraham. Yahweh would select through Abraham's lineage who he would use to fulfill the blessing and promise to Abraham. And it's clear based on that conversation, didn't matter if they served him or not. The fact was Abraham did. And Isaac did. So the conveyor of the blessing, the transfer of the blessing, when Yahweh said the buck stops here, was put on Jacob, who was falsely named Jacob. His name should have been Israel, because Yahweh had already determined he was going to have Yeshua come out of the lineage of Israel. That's why he gave him the name Israel. But Jacob was named Jacob because his daddy wasn't paying attention in his old age. And he got caught up in what they said and what he thought he saw. Man, it makes you go back and want to read that story 100 times over.
No bull.
So is that possible in the Marshall? Absolutely, 100%. Is that happening that way today? No, not so much. But here you gave me a question that was in theory. Yes, in theory, correct. When Yahweh says he's going to do something, like with Abraham, he told Abraham, if you pay attention to the instructions, the detail of it. We don't see it as a detail because we've spoken it so much in general that we don't see it as a specific detail. He says, Abraham, I'm going to give this land to your seed. That's all we keep hearing. It's just like something on repeat. We're so familiar, so common with that statement that we don't see when and how that actually looks. It didn't matter if his seed served like their father. It matters that Yahweh said, this is what I'm going to do. I have something greater than you that will affect the entire world. So I like your character. I like your cloth. I like your mindset. I'm going to use you, somebody with your mindset, somebody in your lineage, and I'm going to put this land for this transformation in your lineage somewhere because of you, because you're the friend of God. Is this helping anybody see the Bible a little bit?
Yes.
Differently. Okay. Y'all know we in the Bible book club, right? Y'all can talk to me, right? Y'all know that?
Yeah.
Hi, sir. My name is Priscilla.
Oh, Krista, I'm so sorry, beloved. Moderators, I need y'all to talk to me. Who's next?
Crystal?
Okay.
My question was, does this only apply to Jacob in this time because this is before the law is given, based off of what the previous question was?
So you're asking the same thing that she asked.
But is the reason because it's before?
Yeah, it would be in part because, and I'm going to be very careful when I say this because y'all try to nail this down to, so that means I can be blessed and no, since the Torah, and this is a great question, Chrysla and Linda, great question. It's because now that the Torah has been given, he needed a place to land the Torah. Israel is where he would build his kingdom in the earth. Create, develop the second Adam to come out of this lineage. He gave Israel all the tribes, Torah. He needed a place to land. He needed to have all these provisions in place, the land given to his seed, all of his seed to have that land, and all of them to be family. So he could literally, and I'm going to be somewhat subjective here to many of you who are articulate in the writ, and he needed to have all the pieces in place in order to plant the reset for humanity to find how to be reconciled to the Father. So Israel had to be established so that the word, that land had to be given to them. They had to be in residency there so he could give them that word, or at least it had to be set for them and who it would be. So when we found out, whenever Yahweh made the decision, it would not be Esau, he did make it Israel. And we can tell he did that from the time he talked to Rebekah in her first trimester of pregnancy. Now, if I'm not making sense to some of you, it's because you haven't read the story. So when he talks to Rebekah in the first trimester of pregnancy, she's like, my back is about to be blown out. My spine feel like it's about to be broken. My stomach is killing me. Why? If this is of you, does this hurt so much? Are you killing these babies inside of me for your servant Itzhak, my husband? Or what is going on? And then Yahweh prophesies, you have two nations in you. So it's clear he chose who was going to be the one to receive the promise. The latter will serve, the first will serve the last that comes out.
Yeah, that was a good riff right there. Good ad.
So when you understand that he made that selection, then he's already said what he's going to do. Notice neither one of the twins have to commit to Elohim. It would be a beautiful storyline if it said they saw their mom and dad serve the Father so much that Jacob was out in the field worshiping the Lord when he was making lentils. If you ever drop in on the storyline of Jacob's life throughout the book of Bereishit, you don't see him praising God, worshiping God anywhere. But when you see the storyline of Itzhak, when Abraham was still alive and Sariah, Abraham sent his servant to go find Itzhak a wife from Padam Aram. He goes to literally Laban's house and gets Rebekah. When Rebekah comes back, she finds Itzhak worshiping Yahweh in the fields. So we see that Itzhak at an early age was worshiping and had committed to Elohim being his God. You don't see that about Yaakov. Am I taking y'all into some good thought here, or?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yes.
Now, this is something important to grasp, because you don't see when, Esau comes running. I've been hunting all week. I ain't found nothing. I'm about to starve. I've been eating berries and tree legs. What's this you got over here you cooking? I got some lentil over here. He wasn't in there giving God glory for the lentils. He was just doing his job as Yaakov, a shepherd and a good steward of the family's wealth and what have you. You never see a scene where Jacob is serving and worshiping God until he's about to die. And that's why some of y'all say, well, how do we get here? Genesis chapter 49, verse 1 makes you, and he is making something very clear. There's a sincere delineation. You are my sons when I was young, dumb, and stupid. So now, before I die and have learned some things, I need you, my young, dumb sons, my sons of my youth and my fleshliness and my survival techniques, not knowing I had this blessing in my life, helping my natural stuff, and I had nothing to do with this blessing on my life. And now I need you to come and let me tell you what I found out. So come and hearken to Israel now. Yes, you're the sons of Jacob, but come listen to your father Israel now. Man, as a father, I get that.
That was good.
Chrysla?
So, Chrysla, back to you. Yes.
Well, don't mean to switch the topic. There was something that you mentioned about.
Did we finish your last topic?
We did.
Go ahead.
You mentioned that you were talking about Abraham's relationship with Yahweh, and you said that Isaac's was a little different. I don't know if you said the word weird. I can't remember. Like comparing the relationships. Why did
Isaac was a conduit?
Okay.
Isaac was off rip, just a conduit. If you look at his life, he was just a conduit. He was just a bearer of what was produced. Abraham was the progenitor. He was where it began. Actually, Terah, Abraham's father, because he didn't tell Abraham to leave. He told Terah to leave Chaldea. And they left and Terah is the father of Abraham and father of Haran, which was Lot's dad, and they leave. And the storyline begins to develop around Avram more so than Terah. So we see that Avram apparently has some traits that Yahweh liked and fostered. And Abraham was just dedicated to it. You could tell he was a good son. You could tell he was a good man based on how he obeyed his father when Elohim told his father to leave the land of Ur. Secondly, how he actually loved his brother's son enough to, in his brother's death, treat him like his own brother, bring him with him when the family left, because he could have left Lot there. Lot was fine. He had enough money. He was good. That they were not a not rich family. So you could tell the nature of Abraham. So the story of Abraham has a real good tracking. And so he's worthy of, this type of, nuance. Now, Abraham, you can see it in him. He is a friend of God because he trusted Elohim just based on his word. That's why he's a friend of Elohim, right? He, against hope, believed. Okay. And wherever Elohim led him, he went. Yitzhak, born under that canopy, is, I dare say, sort of kind of a incubator of what was developed, because he now gets it transferred into him, the blessing of Abraham, and then he is going to be responsible for dispensing it to whoever the chosen one was. So, we had a conversation, I think it was on Sabbath or last week, about, this movie Chosen. So when I think of the chosen, I think of Israel. I think of Jacob. I think of Abraham. I don't, that's how I see it. That's the chosen. Who did Yahweh choose? I'm choosing your lineage. I'm going to bless them because I need to do something. They don't even have to be obedient to me. You're obedient to me. I'm going to bless you and your family because of what you did, Abraham. And Yitzhak also came and he gave me homage. So, that's how they're known as the God of Abraham. He's known as the God of Abraham, Yitzhak. And at the end of Jacob's life, he's known as the God of Jacob. So the comparison of Abraham and Yitzhak was weird. Yitzhak is like a conduit. You know, all of them ultimately are a conduit, but he's like a incubating conduit, you know, because it's like it's going to be discharged from him. Abraham transferred it. So I guess he'd be the petri dish, I guess. You know, that's where
I get what you're saying.
you know what I mean? And Yitzhak would be a life that lived it long and well. And just the blessing was on him. Yaakov had this blessing on him, and it didn't matter that he served Elohim or not. My point for going back to the worship part was because we know that Yitzhak did, in fact, it's messing with me, did in fact worship Elohim at an early age. That's how he connected with Rebekah. When she saw him out in the field worshiping, she jumped off her horse, lighted up. The Bible says she lighted off her horse and ran to his arm, and he took her straight to Sariah's tent. Woo, woo! And they became a couple. Okay, enough said. Notice there was no dating. They didn't go out to, y'all, what's that place y'all don't like? Cheesecake Factory.
They don't like Cheesecake Factory.
She didn't throw on no eyelashes. She had them already. Glory. You know, she was straight off the wagon. She jumped right off the wagon. Now that's a real bandwagon jumper right there. Okay. It was funny to me. It ain't got to be funny to y'all. So that's the thing there. So when we read verse 1 of Bereishit chapter 49, when he makes that statement, hey, gather all my sons that were born when I did not serve Elohim, and come listen to the wisdoms I have now understood, now that I have made the conversion. I am no longer Yaakov. I am Israel. Mind you, like I think it was Brother Eugene brought up in chapter 28. Well, not chapter 28, but later in, I think it's 30, maybe 36. He is, and I don't quote me on that chapter, but this when he is told to go back to his father's land by Yahweh. So here he makes a commitment. I'll serve you if you bring me back. So we know for a fact he's got 13 children later. And 7 years just working for the hand of Raquel. And then he gets duped into his whole family dynamic. You know, he gets 2 wives, and now he's got 4 wives, and now he's got 13 children. Now he's got half of Laban's money, or half of Laban's wealth legally earned, and he is now moving out, and his father is still alive, and Yahweh's bringing him back as he promised. And at this point, when he meets Esau, he still has not served God, but he does pray to Elohim when he is awoken in a dream. He didn't seek Elohim. Let me help y'all with this. And y'all, some of y'all that know the Bible, talk to me, because everybody's gonna think I'm weird if I don't, y'all don't say something. I don't really need y'all to, but it'd be good to do it. You know, if you pay attention here, even in chapter 28, when Jacob is going to Padam Aram because mom and dad put him up there, right? He stops and goes to sleep at this legendary place, and he doesn't expect an encounter with Elohim. Elohim just shows himself to him. And that's why he's like, whoa, this is the place. This is Bethel, house of God. And I didn't even know it, right? Did I even know this? Was my goodness. This is the gateway to heaven. I didn't know this, man. Oh gosh, you know. And then, you know, he has the legend of his father being there. He has the legend of his grandfather Abraham being there. And he's like, I didn't even know it, you know. Now I get what they're talking about. Wow. So he had experience. He goes on to Padam Aram. He's with Laban. He gets with Raquel. He has Leah. They got children. Now he comes back through there again, because he's going back home. But here's the point. When he was told to leave Padam Aram, he wasn't looking for Elohim's guidance at all. Elohim again came to him and said, time to go. So there's no place where Jacob actually seeks Elohim except when he's back en route and he's got to remember, I got to face Esau. So now he goes back to the gateway to heaven. Y'all didn't see all this in the storyline? He goes back to where he met Elohim and he just waits. How is he wrestling with an angel? Because he remembered from chapter 28, this is the gateway to heaven. Where they at? Okay. Well, it was fun talking to y'all. So maybe next week we'll pick back up.
Okay. Apostle, I have a question.
Okay, say your name. I don't know who that is. Say your name.
Priscilla.
Okay, Chris, I'll hold that thought. So while he's there and Jacob never seeks Elohim. Elohim seeks him. Why? Because Elohim has chosen him. I'm going to give you this land because of Abraham. Elohim chose him. I'm going to give you this land because I promised it to Abraham. Doesn't matter whether you serve me or not.
Okay.
Y'all going to be like, nah, that ain't true. Yeah, prove it wrong.
I can't. I'm trying to tell you. I will wave my hand as a living witness. I'm trying to be quiet. Go back on mute.
Can't prove it wrong. He chose Abraham, Isaac, and he even named who he was going to choose himself. Let that sink in. When man named the baby Yahweh chose, he named him wrong. Yahweh had already chosen the baby, and Yahweh already had a name for the baby. But Jacob, not seeking the father, because he grew comfortable in the blessings he had from his worship, and never sought the father about the child's name.
You mean it's not possible?
I don't know who said what or what they said, but moderators, make sure you get them, find out who they were. So Yahweh has already chosen the child. Rebecca is the identifier of that. Rebecca's issue in her first trimester is the identifier of that. Jacob already says, the latter child, the first child shall serve the latter child. That's the choice. I've already chosen him. He's already even given that child a name. So several months later, when the child is born and all the shenanigans happen, Isaac is told by the midwives what took place. And he then, rather than seek Elohim as to what the name of child, he names a child based on what they said he did. And that's how you got Jacob. Heel grabber, supplanter, stumbling block. And Yahweh already had a name for the son. That's why later, when Jacob is grown, they go to Laban. He leaves Laban. He's stuck at the gate, at the stairway to heaven. And he says to the angel, I'm not going to let you go till you bless me. The angel said, what is your name? My name is Jacob. Your name shall no more be called Jacob. Your name is and was always Israel. Your daddy messed that up. Exactly.
So from in the beginning.
Yep.
Genesis 1:1. Oh my God.
His name was always Israel. You shall be a prince to me. You were never a thief.
Wow.
but never a heel grabber. Matter of fact, him grabbing the heel was in fulfilling the organic purpose that Yahweh had put in place. Esau was the wild, crazy one, rambunctious and all that. He shoots out the womb. And Jacob is like, orderly, what are you doing? You know, come back here. I'm supposed to go out, you know. And that's why they always had a battle over the blessing of the birthright. If you just read the story, guys, you ain't got to make stuff up. It's just sitting right there. And so that's where we find it, I think, very intriguing. Chrisla.
So my question is,
okay.
With us, okay, so Jacob just didn't declare, he didn't make the declaration that Yahweh was his Elohim. However, prior to this, that experience when he comes back to Bethel, you know, because he's raising his sons, and like later on we see Joseph, we see that Yahweh is with Joseph. Would you say that that's developed based off of his own relationship? It has nothing to do with Jacob?
No, it does have a lot to do with Jacob. Jacob does fall in love with Raquel. And when he falls in love with Raquel, he is always speaking, you know, you can just imagine him always speaking about his family life, his home life. It's not that Jacob did not talk about Elohim. And then you have the story of his fathers. That's how Usef knew the stories of Avram and Yitzhak from Jacob. And the facts are Usef loved Elohim, loved the God. Watch this. He loved the God of Avram and Yitzhak. Let the phrase sink in. Wow. He loved the God of Avraham and Yitzhak, who are my fathers.
His fathers.
Nobody? Y'all just...
Yeah.
Okay.
I caught it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And since the blessing was already placed upon Jacob, and remember, you got to catch this too. The reason that Usef was so important was because technically Usef would have been his first begotten if he would have had Raquel as his only wife. Because he had a child with the wife of his love, his heart. That's another day for another conversation, y'all know. I don't want to get into that right now.
That's so good. Because, oh, wow, I never even looked at it that way. How, like, even in our mess, like, in this story, I'm, like, thinking, from our original question, like, can we mess up our, you know, alter our destiny per se? The answer is yes now, because this happened before the law was given. But even in this story, where how Joseph plays a role in Egypt, you see that God still ordained it to happen the way it should have happened, versus, you know, from what Laban did, the tricking of having.
It actually helped him have children quickly.
Yeah.
Right. It helped him have the necessary amount of children quickly. All things work together for good to them that love Elohim and are called according to his purpose. Well, whether Jacob loved Elohim or not, clearly he knew Elohim. He loved his father. But at the same time, he was definitely called. So there's your caveat. He was called by Elohim. Elohim already gave that man a name.
That part. Oh, wow.
So you can't even read that passage the same way anymore either. All things work together. All things work together for good to them. And that's a significant thing.
Hey, Santana. Okay.
So with that, you know, we have to pay. We really have to pay. We need to give more attention to the Torah so we can understand all the in-depth storylines of the testimonies from the Tanakh and the Brit Hadessa, the Old Testament and the New Testament of our Bibles. Yeah. So, Krista, does that help?
Yes, it does.
Thanks for your add value. Thanks for your question. Moderators, I think I heard Santana. Is that right?
Yes, Santana.
Anybody in front of her?
It was just Chris Lissa.
Okay, go Santana.
Hey, shalom, everybody. Look, I'm grateful to be a part of this group and living in the land that you all share and breathe right now. Mainly because, again, this is confirmation all over the place, mainly because everything I've been receiving from God just from these studies by myself, it plays out through the week. So, like, certain things jump out, like promise and obedience and disobedience, the effects of it. And so just by walking through these Bible book clubs and, you know, all your other many university studies you provide, the beginning of Genesis, it holds so much, but it really takes it to even thinking that in Genesis 1:1, like he was Israel from the beginning. And so it's like from Genesis 1:1, it's so much missed because we don't really hone in on what it provides in just the word simply. You know what I'm saying? So it's a lot of confirmation from just me listening. I see it, it's like it pop out for just promises to being obedient. And even when you're not, like, again, these are things I'm sharing. I'm by myself. Nobody know when I'm thinking about myself. So, you know, these are things that are popping out just from these one interactions in these couple of hours you teach or whatever, and you get more from just by yourself.
I don't teach. We read the writ.
That part.
And we rehearse the writ. So I can't take any credit for that because all we did was open up what he left us. That's the beauty of it. That word never changes. It's been sitting there in our Bibles, untouched, untapped forever. And when someone has the courage to come and open it up, and then with another group talk about his word, it makes it easy for me to say, I'm not the teacher. I might be holding a flashlight so we can all see the word, but it's the word making the change.
Absolutely that. Thank you for helping steward, but Holy Ghost, Ruach HaKodesh is major, and that's why I wanted to just again show how you're pushing of reading the Torah and not just sticking to the New Testament. Genesis by itself holds so much weight to take us back to how he really even evolved to Jesus Christ, you know, being Adonai in the flesh. It just is amazing to see how it referenced back to everything, how his beginning played out.
It's the beginning.
Yeah, it's still the beginning.
It's the beginning.
Blows my mind. That's why I'm so
It's the beginning. It's Genesis, Bereishit, the book of beginnings. Everything starts in Torah. So if the roots are Torah, then the leaves come later. The branches come later. So the book of beginning is the roots. Everything stands because of the roots. And if we're just looking at the leaves and only enjoying the fruits, then we're shallow in our perception. Though we have a very good visual, we may even enjoy the sense. We enjoy the touch, the taste of whatever the fruit or the yield may be. We still have to give respect to why it is. And therefore, if we look at the beginning, we understand why this fruit exists, why these leaves are as they are, and the branches are as they are. And that's why Yeshua said, I am the vine, that makes that connection.
Yes.
Just Santana caught that? Nobody else? Okay. So let me make it plain. The roots are in the ground where it all begins, because a kernel of wheat has to fall in that ground. A kernel has to fall. A seed has to fall in that ground to begin. And then the vine transfers, creates, builds that tree. That tree goes and moves, bark, limbs, leaves, fruit potentially, and later. But what keeps that tree above ground, connected to the tree in the ground, is the vine.
And the green grass grow all around and around.
Wow. Wow.
That part. That was cute, Santana. And the green grass grows around and around. That was good. All right, so everybody, it's been an hour and a half. I hope that you guys have enjoyed it. All right, Wanda, thank you for adding value, Santana. Wanda?
I just wanted to tell, or at least speak on what I was realizing. And if I'm wrong, please correct me.
We will.
While it takes, yes, sir. While it does take Jacob a while before he actually calls Yahweh his Elohim, what I did realize is that we don't see him disobey Yahweh.
No, he's not an unruly individual. He's not oh, thank you for bringing it up. I was talking with Apostle Walker and I don't know, when was it? Was it Sabbath, or it must have been Monday or Wednesday or something.
It was Monday.
It was Monday. Okay, well, thank you very much. You want to mind your business? Stay out of mine, please. No, I'm just teasing. And this pastor, I've always had respect for, always will. We say stuff all the time, sometimes. But, it was like the way that they just drug Jacob down because of his name and the teachings behind the supplanter, the heel grabber, right? He was like, yeah, Jacob was this horrible guy, he was a thief, and, he was like, nowhere in the writ shows any of that. And even the action that came close to him being considered a thief was his mom's plan, because she was fulfilling her responsibilities as a helpmeet, because the prophecy that was given to her while she was pregnant with these two boys, and she made sure that Elohim's plan got done and the right child got blessed. Because Yahweh don't bless mess. So if Jacob was not to be the one with the blessing, Yahweh would not have let it confer. So, that's aside from the point I was making. And the point being made was the brother was just, Jacob was a terrible person, and this, that, and the other. And he was saying, and even with my marks and my scars and this wound in my side, I'm not going to let you go till you make this wound a blessing. And I was like, boy, that's way out of context. And it's going to a billion of people hearing this, and no one's going to read the story. They're going to hear that, be encouraged by, yes, he's going to make my scar, my keloid, my wound, going to make it a blessing. Read that. Read that. So, Wanda, to your point, nowhere in the writ does it say that Jacob, he didn't deal falsely with anybody. Jacob didn't even steal his brother's birthright when his brother sold it to him for food. It just adds a different enlightenment when you read the story and you see the facts, instead of all of the entertainment that goes around making something fashionable to say. So I don't see him as a bad person in any way, shape, or form. No traits of him are wrong. He even deals well with being tricked into some other stuff he didn't sign up for. Probably could have talked him and told him what the culture was. He'd have probably accepted it. All of his pain and everything going on. His brother wants him dead. The guy's been stellar. But go ahead, Wanda.
No, that's what I was seeing. Nowhere do we ever see him disobey or tell Elohim or Yahweh no. Whatever Yahweh tells him or instructs him to do, he does. And the sad part of this
Hold
is
it. I got to check you. It's not whatever Elohim or Yahweh tells him to do. It's whatever his parent. Yeah, because he's not serving Elohim. Okay. He's not serving Elohim. So I can't say yes to that, but I know what you mean. So you're saying, in essence, he carries out the imagery that a Torah observant person, an Elohim observant person would do, i.e., honors his mother and his father. He never disobeys his mom, never disobeys his father. Even in the action we deem thievery, he obeys his mom. You know what I mean? So the guy is stellar. So it's not that he obeyed Elohim and obeyed Yahweh, right? Though he does, when he is given the vision after children to get up and leave Padam Aram and go back to where his father is, he does get talked to in a vision and he leaves. So that's the only time I see him obey. Oh no. And this is sort of kind of subjective. I hate to say subjective. All right. So clearly the time Yahweh comes to him, the second time Yahweh comes to him and tells him to go back to your father's land, that's an act of obeying Elohim, right? Okay. He's still not serving him because his commitment has not been fulfilled. The one that Jacob, his fleece of Yahweh has not been fulfilled. But he does obey Elohim, and Elohim says, go back to your father's land. He does. That's the one time. The second time, the only time, this is when it's sort of kind of subjective, is when he is mad with Laban. He knows he needs to get out of Dodge. Laban has tricked him into another some 6 years of service, and he's lied to him about how many cattle were ring stark, speckled, and spotted. And then because of the blessing on his life, I think that the blessing on his life, let me go to this before I say this. Bark of the almond tree. Where is that?
28, 29, something like that.
Is it 20? I think it's 29. $31. Thank you, Yahweh. Let's go to chapter 31. Genesis 31. And the reason I'm doing this is because I want to make sure we get it as to whether this was Elohim or let's go to verse 1. Do it that way. I'm going to put the screen on the Bible on the screen for y'all. Here we go. Boom. 31. Genesis 31:8. I'll go to verse 1. And he heard the words of Laban's son saying, Jacob have taken away all that was our father's, and that which was our father's has gotten all this glory. Jacob beheld the countenance of Laban. Behold, it was not toward him as before. Verse 3. Yahweh said unto Jacob. Okay. Here it is, right? Here it is. Yahweh said unto Jacob, return unto the land of your fathers, of your kindred. So he obeys him. I will be with thee. Jacob sent and called Rachel, Leah to the field unto his flock. And he said unto him, I see your father's countenance, that it is not towards me as before, but Elohim of my father hath been with me. And you know, you know that with all my power I have served your father. Again, upstanding dude. Verse 7, and your father has deceived me and changed my wages 10 times. But Elohim suffered, here it is, but Elohim suffered him not to hurt me. And if he said thus, the speckled shall be wages, then all the cattle bear speckled. And if he said thus, the ringstark shall be thine hire, they bear all the cattle ringstark. Thus Elohim hath taken away the cattle of your father and given them to me. Okay, so he is talking about what Elohim has done. He never denies Elohim, but he has not made Elohim he's not made Yahweh his Elohim. So it wasn't 31. I think it was actually earlier in this. So yeah, chapter 30, verse 4. Chapter 30, verse 34. And Laban said, behold, I would it might be according to your word. He removed them that day. This is when Laban took the actual ringstark out. He removed them that day, the goats, which were ringstark, spotted, and all the she-goats that were speckled and spotted, and every one that had some white in it, all the brown among the sheep, and gave them to the hands of his sons. Laban gave them to his sons, and they set them 3 days' journey betwixt Jacob, and Jacob fed the rest of Laban's flock. Jacob took him rods. Here it is. Jacob took him rods of green poplar and hazel and chestnut tree, and he peeled white stalks in them. He peeled white stalks in them and made the white appear, which was in the rods. And he set the rods which he had peeled before the flocks in the gutters in the watering troughs, when the flocks came to drink, that they should conceive when they came to drink. And the flocks conceived before the rods, and they brought forth cattle, which was ringstark, speckled, and spotted. And Jacob did separate the lambs and set the faces of the flocks toward the ringstark, all the brown in the flock of Laban, and he put his own flocks by themselves and put them not unto Laban's cattle. And it came to pass, whensoever the stronger cattle did conceive, that Jacob laid the rods before the eyes of the cattle in the gutters, that they might conceive among the rods. But when the cattle were feeble, he put them not in. So the feebler were Laban's, and the stronger were Jacob's. The man increased exceedingly and had much cattle, maid servants and men servants, camels and asses. Now, here is why I said this and brought this up earlier, Wanda. Laban or Jacob doesn't deal dirty with Laban. Laban deals dirty with him. But the only time I can say that Jacob obeyed Elohim was when 31 told him, Yahweh said, it's time for you to leave. I was thinking that the idea to put the almond bark and the almond rods in the water in the troughs was a command of Elohim. No, it was just the blessing of Elohim working through Jacob in his mind and how to reason and deduct and critical think. So I would have been wrong by saying he obeyed Elohim then, because it was just the nature of the blessing on him, the dew of heaven on him, quickening his mind to do that maneuver and cause the cattle transfer that way legally. Does that make sense? Or did that too much?
No, it makes sense.
Does anybody not get that?
But didn't he say he dreamed that? He had a dream to do that?
No. He just did it. Is that what it says?
Well, I was talking about when he was explaining it to his wives, he said, I dreamed it, right?
Where are you at, Santana?
Back what you read before, I think it was in 31, where he was saying they got to go, and I had a dream, and your dad said I could have these sparkle or sprinkled cattle, so I'm going to take all our cattle, and we're going to go. So that was in 31, you just 34. 31.
All right, so I'm in 31:8. I'll read it from there. If he said, thus the speckled cattle should be our wages, then the cattle bear speckled. If he said, thus the ring start shall be our hire, there then bear all the cattle ring start. Elohim then took away the cattle from your father and have given them to me. And it came to pass in that time, the cattle conceived, that I lifted up mine eyes and saw in a dream, and behold, rams which leaped upon cattle were ring start speckled and gristled. And the angel of Elohim spake unto me in a dream, saying, Jacob, here I am, here am I. And he said, lift up now your eyes and see all the rams which leap upon the cattle, that they are ring start speckled and gristled. For I have seen that Laban, all that Laban did to you. I am the God of Bethel, where you anointed that pillar, and where you vowed a vow unto me. Now arise and get thee out of this land, and return unto the land of your kindred. And Rachel and Leah answered and said unto him, is there yet any portion of inheritance for us in our father's house? Are we not counted of him strangers? For he hath sold us, and hath quite devoured also our money. For all the riches which Elohim hath taken from our father, that is ours and our children's. Now then, whatever Elohim hath said unto thee, you do it. We with you. We team Jacob. We no longer team Laban. All right. So in this, the dream was to give him the instruction, Santana, to know that he was right and okay in leaving.
Okay. Thank you. I'm sorry. Mm-hmm.
So he had already done the work of the ring start and the trough work. Right. But in consciousness, he's a stand-up guy. So Elohim visits him in a dream and lets him know, and he sees these rams. Now, what the rams represent are two things. Rams represent prosperity and prophecy. So when you see rams leaping, you're prospering in that area. You see rams, there's something in your future that will also be prosperous. And rams also represent prophecy. They can be the same. They can also be singular, but most prosperity will be in your future. So that makes it prophetic, but the ram typically is a prophetic thing that's happening in the future. So seeing his actions in a dream, meaning it's prospered you, and this is a future thing that you should be doing. So I hope that made sense, Santana.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
All right, everybody, we're going to go ahead and end this again. Another 2-hour night. How are we doing this? Are y'all learning at least?
Absolutely learning.
All right. Okay. Well, we'll probably see you guys tomorrow at 1:00 for the preceding word. Look to see you guys then next week back here for Bible Book Club. We'll be picking up in. Let me finish in Bereishit. Bereishit 49. Let me finish it so we can get off of it. Verse 1. So we can start right next week. And Jacob said unto his sons, gather yourselves together, that I may tell you that which befalls you in the last days, eschatology. Gather yourselves together and hear, ye sons of Jacob, and hearken unto Israel, your father. All right. And then we'll pick back up down around verse 13, I think it is. That's where we left off the last time we chatted. Well, Zion, it's been a joy talking with you guys. I'm hoping that you guys have been edified in all of this. I got an announcement for you guys. Listen, those of you who have always asked, how can we be of support to this ministry? We have an opportunity to do that if any way you want to. We're going to leave you that announcement after I pray, and I'm going to believe that Yahweh will keep you in every way, as long as you filter all of your thoughts, your desires, and your aspirations through the Torah. Simple way to do that. Whatever the thought is you have in your mind, narrow it down to a phrase and at best a word, and then search that word or all the words in that phrase through your concordance, and then go find those words in your Torah and watch them speak to you.
Thank you.
Everybody's wondering, how do you keep saying filter through the word, filter through the word? Okay, you're going through something, you feel offended, right? Or you feel elated, right? But you don't want to make any crazy moves because you don't make good choices when you are sad. You don't make great choices when you are happy. So what do I do? I'm feeling some kind of way. Whatever that feeling is, narrow it down to a phrase. And it's best if you can narrow the phrase down to a word. And then you search that word out in your concordance. So you go into your concordance with that word or the group of words from that phrase. And then you search every word in your concordance, but not in the Bible. The concordance, you want to work that part from the Torah. Find that word, anger, wrath, joy, prosperity, indifference, whatever that word is, find it in the concordance, and then read every passage that comes from the Torah. And when you find one, it may cross-reference you from the Torah to the Brit Hadashah or to the Tanakh to give you a testimonial of it. But by the time you've read those passages from the word you've surmised it to, it's going to speak to you. I can't explain it any better than that. You have to experience it. All right. So that's where we are today. That lesson is free, just teasing. And we're hoping to see you again next week, same time. Let us pray. Yahweh, thank you for your word. Anything spoken outside of the real true context of your content, we ask you to strike from the record of your mind of your people. But Father, everything that was spoken in truth and in clarity, we ask you to make it real to us. We're asking you to let it saturate and maturate in our hearts and our minds. Help to draw up out of us your word that you've planted in us. And now in this moment of time, I ask you to bless your people. Now may Yahweh bless you and keep you. May Yahweh make his face to shine on you and be gracious unto you. May Yahweh lift his countenance upon you and grant you all 13 attributes of his shalom. Well, we'll see you.
Thank you for tuning in today. I hope that this message has been a blessing to your very life and your soul, and more importantly, your walk with the King. Well, we have come to the end. I hope that you would consider becoming either a partner with us in ministry, or if you're not already a kingdom citizen, consider becoming one. By doing that, you can sow into this ministry so that we are able to continue to teach this type of ministry at a grand scale. Join us on all of our social media platforms and visit our webpage to make your contributions sure. Thank you. Have a wonderful day. Shalom Aleichem.
If you need truth, this is the place for you. No need to complicate it. It's best to keep it basic. Open the book, the word itself approved. He's Alpha and Omega, the answer since the early ages. What you should do is learn about the greatest. Just so you know, our door is always open. Let's study together instead of debating. Share our differences, let love heal all that's broken.